Welcome to Adapted, the show where we discuss adaptations of various forms. My name is Tom, and with me is
Pat?
Emile Zola was born in 1840 of a Venetian canal builder in Paris. He became famous for his sordid autobiographical novel, The Confessions of Claude from 1865, and even more famous after the success of Therese Recon and its stage adaptations from 1868. Soon after that, he did a 20-novel series about the social circumstances in France, sort of inspired by the human comedy of Balzac.
So he wasn't arrogant and sold on himself doing a 20-volume series.
Yes. Yeah, it's about these kind of two families. But that seems to be the thing with naturalism. You just kept writing books. I suppose it was like their version of Wheel of Time. It's just instead of fantasy, it's
Robert Short. Wow, that was a reference. That was a good
yeah, yeah,
reference.
yeah. That's I'm just sort of imagining, except there's no magic, and everybody is a soulless French poor person. So it's very exciting, I'm sure. After his defense of Dreyfus with his pamphlet J'accuse, he was convicted of treason and forced to leave for England. He lived there for a few years, and after his return, he did live well. He actually was pretty well off. He made a lot of money. He supported Paul Cézanne, a childhood friend of his, but he also had some very vocal haters. He died after his chimney was mysteriously clogged and it forced smoke back into his home, poisoning him and his wife. His wife recovered. He did not, and he died in his 50s in 1902. And this becomes one of like the original conspiracy theories. Who killed Emile Zola? He was twice a nominee for the Nobel Prize, both in 1901, where he lost to the stunning verse of Sully Prudhomme, and then in 1902, where he lost to Theodore Mommsen and his analysis of Rome.
Thompson at least seems like a legit winner to some extent, even though we don't read
Yeah,
him
even if nobody
anymore. So,
reads him,
so
yeah.
I would love to read it. I told you, I keep trying to find it. There's like no copies for other like for less than $1,000. But
Don't want to read him that bad.
no, I'm not that interested. But Sully Prudhomme is pretty pretty bad.
I suppose so. But Zola was nominated twice by Marcel Berthelot, who himself was nominated many, many, many years for the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, extremely successful chemist. And he never got it, obviously, because he died in 1902, which is probably a big part of why he didn't get it. And let's jump right in. We also did Thirst, a Korean movie that I at first loved and in the second hour loved a whole lot less. But we will get to
It falls
that.
apart a bit.
It falls apart in the second hour.
Just a smidge.
But we will get to that and the unusual choice of using the supernatural to adapt the natural.
I again think there's a reason for that. Like,
Why he went with the supernatural?
I think there's a good reason why he did. Yeah.
Okay.
When we get to it, we can talk about it. But
Let's start with Zola and with what Zola is doing. So Zola is part of this naturalist movement that kind of starts with Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo wrote a play called Cromwell, which was pretty long and nobody liked it, but it had a prologue in which he sort of says we need to return to or start using natural ideas and real world observations and not big melodramatic things. Darwin comes
Victor
along.
Hugo said that
Yes.
of all people. That's
Yes, yeah, yeah.
bold of him to make that statement.
It was yeah, yeah, yeah. Victor Hugo was uh ahead of his time. He was even ahead of himself, I suppose. But anyway, this type of thing inspired naturalism along with a few other movements. So Darwin was a big inspiration. These people read Darwin, as well as the positivist movement that was going on a little earlier than this, an
I'm not
18th century
familiar with the
movement.
positivists, but
Auguste Comte was the big name
oh,
there.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and Auguste Comte basically said you should ground all knowledge in observation, an empirical observation, and things you can reason and suspend with anything that is metaphysical or even ethics should be grounded in the empirical or the rational. And that's how we should proceed with society. Very, very much an Enlightenment idea, which eventually leads to the logical positivists and then analytic philosophy and then coding, basically. There's a lineage there. But the idea was anything we can observe. Now, this kind of falls apart as science gets more complicated and you start to do things like, well, can't really observe gravity, but I can observe the effects. And this is where that positivism has to change. But positivism, along with the evolutionary theories of Darwin, were the big influence on people like Balzac and Zola. And then later in America, people like Frank Norris and ultimately Theodore Dreiser, who was probably, I
I was
would
gonna
say,
say Dreiser. Yeah,
Dreiser is probably the best of
Dreiser's better
this
than yeah. Dreiser's quite
tradition.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. But you could see it here, like Balzac
Have you read
does.
Sister Carrie? Is that
I
the one? That's the only
have.
thing I've yeah. That's the only thing I read by it. But
Yeah, Red Sister Carrie, and then actually An American Tragedy, which is about a couple who drowns someone on a boat
oh, I
in order
forgot
to be
about I
together. Yeah.
forgot about that
Yeah.
one. I haven't read it, but yeah, I forgot about that one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's a it's actually based on a true story, An American Tragedy, and a lot of it is also about the law case that comes up afterwards, which is obviously not a big part of this book. It doesn't come, they don't get caught, so there is no law case or anything like that. Dreiser seems to be much more interested in moving away from the strictly positivist to, I would say, like a pseudo-Marxist take on what's
Yeah,
going on in society. Not too heavy-handed, but he's also not.
it's deterministic. He's certainly deterministic, I
And
would say.
and so are these people. I think Zola's deterministic
Probably to some extent.
to some extent. He that was a big part of the positivist thing. They also wanted to ground things in subtraction of the free will from equations. But yeah. Yeah, so they were very much interested in determinism. Balzac is. If you've ever have you read Balzac?
I've never read any Balzac, no.
I've read a few of them, and he wrote something called The Human Comedy, which is a 50 plus novel series. So if you
Yeah.
think Zola was
Good,
full of
good, good.
himself,
Yeah, I'm like, good for you.
yeah, and I've read a
If you
few
thought
of
you had
them.
that much to say.
Yeah, well, I've read a few of them, and I don't. People love Balzac, and I've read three of his novels. I don't quite understand the affection. Balzac is very much genes equals destiny. There is no free will in Balzac, and he doesn't have the language of genetics, but who you are is what you're always going to be, and you don't grow at all. And there's one book, Old Man Poirot, which is about an old man who lives at the top floor of a tenement, and all he does is worry about his two daughters and give them all his money. And his daughters never call him except for money, never talk to him, hate him except when they give him money. And when he dies old and penniless because they took all his money, they don't show up for his funeral. And no matter what happens, he will always give them money. He will sacrifice everything to give them money. Even when he's complaining that they won't visit him and how unjust it is he has to give them money, he still gives them money because he has one thing he does and he can't stop doing it. And they are pure parasite and they can't stop being pure parasite. They're never going to grow. They're never going to learn. And you know that going into the book. And so
I
it
mean,
just never changes.
this is kind of a modern idea, though. I mean,
Mhm.
meaning like it's an idea, meaning modern in that it's a current idea. Like that's not people do that all the time
Mhm.
nowadays. The number of people who are like, well, I can't do that because I have
Oh, okay.
X
I see.
thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can't do that. I have anxiety about that. I can't do that. I have this thing. Like, this is a thing. I can't. There's no that's not a thing I can do. I can't go out in public. I can't talk to these people. This gives me, whatever it happens to be. I think there is a very strong tendency nowadays to ascribe behaviors to conditions.
Yes, yeah. And in Balzac, it just seems to be not a condition, but
Well,
just
it's
a
this is I
way
mean,
someone is.
but that's,
Yeah.
I guess it's a different, I think where, as you said, like he doesn't have the language of genes, he doesn't have the language of psychological,
Mhm.
whatever conditions or whatever it happens
He
to be.
does, he
He
doesn't
doesn't
have
quite
Freud. He doesn't
Yeah,
have
he
Freud.
doesn't. Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have that language, but it's the same concept. And it's a very old concept. You can go all the way back to Calvin or even Augustine to some extent and find it if you really want to. So
Mhm. Yeah. And so they're a little difficult to get through. And it seems like with Zola and with this book, this is the only book of his I've read. I haven't read any of the other ones. That it's much more about how the environment makes the outcome. And people are products of their environment. They they seem to have very limited will, if any, and they seem to have very limited psychology, even.
well, I don't think there's any psychology. I think that's one of my criticisms of the book. As you said, I haven't. So this was my funny story. I asked around, like and I have a decent number of friends I feel like who are well read, and I asked around. No one, no one had read any Zola. I found one person, my high school English teacher, who said she read Teresa Raquin when she was an undergraduate 50 years ago in a French class. She was the only person who had read any Zola. And when I went to the bookstore, and I knew I looked it up online, and Barnes and Noble had it. So I should also my library system did not have Teresa Raquin at all. This is the library system that had what was the Spanish playwright we did? That
Oh,
dude,
Jose Echegaray?
Jose Echegaray. My library system had Jose Echegaray. They did not have Teresa Raquin, not a single copy of it. And so I went to Barnes and Noble and I looked up online. I was like, oh, Barnes and Noble has it. So I went there. I go to the fiction section. I get down there. They had one book by Zola, and then I saw Zweig, and there's no Teresa Raquin. So I went to the guy and I was like, I'm looking for Teresa Raquin by Emile Zola, and he's like, Zola, how do you spell it? And I'm like, Zola, and he goes, that'll be at the very end of the fiction section. I go, I wanted to go, I know how the alphabet works. Like I don't need that. And I was like, yeah, I looked there. There's a Zola book, but this particular one isn't there. So we go, he looks, and I get it. He's like, this is the equivalent of like, when the IT says, did you turn it off and turn it back on again? They're going to actually make sure you did it. So, he went and checked and was like, oh yeah, you're right. It's not here. He's like, unfortunately, there's only one copy in the store. If it's not here, I guess it must have got misplaced. We don't have it. And I was like, oh, okay. Thank you. He's like, I'll look around and see if I can find it somewhere. And I thought maybe it's in crime or something like that. No, it's not. And then he found me a few minutes later and goes, I found it. And he goes, whoever filed it under R. They thought the author was Teresa Raquin and the book was called Emile Zola. So I thought, oh goodness, this man does not have much currency in the modern age. No one, people at Barnes and Noble don't even know who he is. And these are usually fairly well-read individuals, and the person cataloging the books doesn't even know which is the author and which is the title. So I thought, man, this guy is not current. And it's like I've heard of Emile Zola. I certainly clearly know of him, but I couldn't before this couldn't tell you of a single book. I know nothing, and I couldn't find a single person who'd read him. So it does raise an interesting question. Why did he vanish? And my gut says in 50 years, I don't think anyone's going to be reading him. That's what it
Ye-
feels like.
Yeah, my idea as to why he vanished is the shallowness of the characters and the falseness of the project. He has a
Yeah,
project which is I want to take characters and treat the fiction world as a scientific lab. And we're going to
yeah,
put certain things into the lab and we're going to test it to see what comes out of it. And that
yeah,
project is stupid. Not to put too fine a point on it, it's a dumb thing to do. A fiction world is not a scientific lab. This is not a controlled experiment. The metaphor that it could be a controlled experiment in some way is idiotic. It's totally melodramatic. You haven't avoided the melodrama that you claim to avoid by being naturalistic and scientific. I'm not entirely sure what the observation about society that I'm supposed to learn. What is not even lesson. What is the thesis that you've proven in this book? But if you
I
shut
think what
people
he's,
up,
I mean,
they'll.
I think what he's trying to prove. I agree. I agree with everything you're saying. I don't think it works. It's also it's very unconvincing. Even as a if you've there are convincing portraits of people who've committed murder. Crime and Punishment is the a clear example from this time period. But even as I mentioned last the end of our episode last week, like Postman always rings twice, that does actually feel fairly true as a group of it's two people who murder the husband, and it feels like it has a similar situation, and that feels believable to a certain extent as to what happens to them. But in this one, it's like I don't believe anything that these people would behave the way that they're behaving to a certain extent. Like I can sort of imagine some of it, but after a while, it's just no, I don't believe they would do this. Like I don't believe they would stay up all night staring at each other across a room. Like I don't believe that. I'm sorry. For weeks and weeks on end, every single night they sit in chairs and stare at each other. Like I don't believe that for a second. Like it's people get tired. They would go to bed. Like there's just there's no sense in which that's accurate. And what, to your point, he just kind of flat out denies that psychology exists. Everything it's almost medieval. It's like, well, murder causes an imbalance in your humors. Like it's not conscience that bothers you. It's that apparently for some reason, if you commit a murder, your yellow bile gets out of whack, and that will cause you to go insane. Like I'm not exaggerating
He's
though,
not
right?
exact. No, you're not. I was talking about this with my wife. She hadn't read the book, but I was talking about it, and I said one of the big problems is he goes out of his way to tell you these people don't feel guilt,
Yeah.
and then they demonstrate feelings of guilt for the last 40% of the book,
Yeah,
right?
at least, yeah.
Yeah, I mean they can't sleep. They keep seeing
And it's
visions
like
of them.
racking, like insane
Yeah.
guilt, like
Mhm.
to the extent of, as I say, like I compared it, and I'm curious. I don't know if because Crime and Punishment had just been written when this came out, like a
Well,
year before.
this was 68. What is Crime and
Crime and
Punishment?
Punishment 67.
Is it 67? Okay.
Yeah.
Is he reading
So
Crime and Punishment? I don't know.
that's I don't think so because I actually did look when was Crime and Punishment translated into French. It wasn't until the 1880s. And Zola I didn't speak Russian. So I don't think he actually read it, but I'm guessing either one of two things. He probably had at least some friends of letters in Russia that could have been writing to him about the book, saying that this book is causing a huge sensation in Russia. So I imagine he could have been receiving letters from intelligentsia there, and the intelligentsia and the upper class in Russia all spoke French. So it would have been very easy for them to tell him about the book. Or my other, I don't know whether this was the case or not. Was this like just a question in the cultural milieu of the time that people were taught, like again, that this intelligentsia is talking about this question of guilt and murder, and that's why a number of these books kind of all come out at the same time in the same way that Dante's Peak and Volcano come out at the same time. Like are they sort of all dealing with the same general topic? So I don't know if that's the case or not, but if you compare it to Crime and Punishment, that is a believable portrait of a murderer who just goes, and he does end up getting physically ill after the murder, in Raskolnikov does, and then he has these highs and lows and just wild swings, but Dostoevsky isn't going out of his way to ascribe it to specific things, and with a point. I mean, he does have a point, but it's not as if he's like his conscience made him sick, or something. Like it wasn't his that he actually had a fever. His conscience caused the Satan burns, whatever. It's like, yeah, he's got a religious point. He's not, but it's believable the way that this human being responds to the guilt. In this, it's like, what is your point? They can't be. And again, I guess it's literally, it feels like as if it's like a Darwinian thing. Like human beings have been evolved such that murder causes us to become physically ill. That's like seems
That's
to
the
be the
only
thesis.
explanation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have, they don't have a conscience. Conscience doesn't exist because it's not something we can observe. So since it doesn't exist and we can only observe, only things that exist are things that we can observe, it must just be when you do things socially unacceptable, you
You
get
become physically
physically
ill,
ill, I guess. I mean,
I
that must be
guess.
it. And then you become suicidal. It would be much, much simpler and more convincing to just say people experience guilt when they do bad things.
Things.
Yeah, which
And
is odd because they don't. I mean, he talks about their interior state sometimes. Sometimes you get the male lover, you get his what he's thinking, and what he's
particularly
thinking
his. You get hers a little bit,
he's
not as much.
yeah, he's more, and it's just like he would have done it again. He would
Yeah.
gladly done it again if he could benefit
Yeah,
from it.
even now in his suffering, he would have done it again if he thought it could have advantaged him. Like, but you're undercutting that. You're telling me now that he's like constantly in torture and pain because of what he did. Then why would he do it again?
The only explanation is he's a dumb ape. And he's sort of described like an ape. When you get him,
Yeah,
he's like
he's
he's
very frequently
big,
described.
he's
Yeah,
got big hands. I remember that description very clearly. He had these like
he
big
has big
muscular
hands. Yeah,
hands and like a big neck and things like that. He's like a monkey. He's like a big ape. The only thing I could think is that like as a big dumb ape, he he would happily murder people to get ahead, but also still feel bad, like just like the poison berries taste good, so he would just keep eating them even though they made him
I
sick.
hated the purple berries. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just like yeah. So
that's the only
yeah,
thing I can think.
which is
Um,
just dumb. No, that's not. That's just not how human beings, for the most part, work. Even the dumb ones. Like it's not. It's just not what happens. So it's a wildly unconvincing portrait.
and it's
And
part,
so
yeah, I mean it's part of his project though, right? He
yeah,
wants to say this is how the world is, and this is how we're going to get at truth. But he's reducing everything that people do in order to get at truth. I mean, he's removing so many factors from his quote unquote experiment that the things he's experimenting on aren't in the lab anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just a really bad way to go about it. Never mind the fact that it's just you can't do art in a lab. It's just an ass backwards way of producing a work of art, or entertainment or whatever. Um, yeah, it just kind of shows the failure of this type of positivism or this type of naturalism. And Dreiser, like if you read Sister Carrie, is
Yeah.
far more convincing. And Dreiser's doing this project to an extent, but he's not saying
It's
everybody's
not
just
as
a
it,
stupid ape.
yeah,
They're
it's not as if you ever, I mean, Sister Carrie is crushed by her poverty. Like that is very clear. And so there is a sense in which if she had not been poor, she wouldn't do the things that she does. And that's kind of believable to some extent. Like, this is it reminds me of the Good Person of Setsuan. Morality is expensive. It costs a lot of money to do the right thing sometimes, and being poor means you're gonna make moral compromises to survive. And it's not that the rich don't do it too, it's just they don't have to make quite the same types of choices. So they can put on airs of being morally good because they don't have to decide whether to be a prostitute to get their food. That's not a decision they have to reach, that they have to make. So therefore, that's just not a sin or a problem they're going to fall into. Like that seems to be or a vice. I guess we'll go. That's not a vice they're going to fall into. They might fall into other vices, but they don't have to worry about that particular one. Whereas poor people, if especially like they have no social safety net, they're in this time period, they might have to resort to stealing or prostitution or whatever in order to survive. And that's sort of that's the idea in Sister Carrie to some extent is yeah, if she was rich she wouldn't have this problem, but she does, so therefore she, she makes the choices she does. This thing though is like, I guess it's they live in a dank alley, sort of arcade, and so therefore they they live in a place that's like they've already been buried, so they're going to act like they're already dead.
I think it's the idea is that she is so first of all, she is this daughter of an African princess and a
Well,
sea captain.
that's probably BS, obviously.
Oh, okay.
She isn't
Yeah.
actually the daughter of an African prince. I don't think
Well, there's some sort of suggestion, right, that he went
she
to Africa.
says it, but I think that's like, that's like I'm trying to think of what, the sort of maybe like is it Pip or who is it that there's one of those like I think it's a Dickens character who says something like maybe my parents were actually outlaws and they're running through the wilderness right now and they're gonna come pick me up and we're gonna get on the train together and go do so, something like that. It's like no, your dad was in the Navy and he probably banged some prostitute in an African town somewhere and you're the product of that. Like I
Yeah.
think that's more likely the
Well,
implication here.
she's foreign. That's
She is
more I meant.
foreign,
She's
yes.
foreign, and she has this kind of foreign blood, and
But
she's
she's not a
taken.
princess, I think is the point.
No,
Like,
no, no, no. Yeah, she's that was less my interest and more in the African. That
oh,
she's
okay.
just
I thought you were
she's
focusing on
a
the princess. I'm like, I
no,
don't
no.
think that's I don't
Um,
think that's there.
yeah, she's this person from this warm, exotic climate who's put into a hovel, right? She's put into this
Yeah.
dank shop in a back alley and stranded there with a weak man. They go out of your way to tell you he's this skinny, weak man. And if you have
I will
somebody
say
with,
that part at least was convincing. That
yes,
man drove me absolutely up
yeah,
a
you're like,
wall. And I
please kill
totally
him.
believed, yeah, I'm like, I actually believe the depiction of the husband, and I'm like, God, he just sounds awful. And like, and I did actually, and that one, to some extent, I actually do believe that one a lot more. Because the point they make about the husband is that he basically was constantly sick as a child and almost died like 20 times. And the mother had to be like constantly taking care of him and like wrapping him in blankets, and he never saw the sun and he never went outside. And there is a sense in which that kind of probably did make him the way that he was. And he just is. I'm like, God, this guy is just awful. There is a sense in which that one is believable, I
Yeah,
thought, anyway.
he's convincing.
He is, yeah.
You don't have to spend too much time with him though, or see him develop. But there's this kind of sense of like, if you take a woman from that background and put her in this situation, what else would you expect to happen? Like
Yeah,
she's
fair
going to
enough.
break out and so on and so forth. Then that makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense, as we've discussed before, is that they're not people, they're apes. And that's just not being a person. I feel more for my species than that we're apes.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, I don't know if it's the extremism of sort of interpreting Darwin, where it's like, oh, well, we are that,
Mm.
we can't operate any other way than the way that evolution would dictate that we should behave. So we have
Yeah.
to have an evolutionary explanation for everything. It's like it reminds me of, there was even something I remember reading at one point. I can't remember which scientist this was that was trying to explain altruism from an evolutionary perspective and was
Oh,
trying,
yeah, I've heard a lot of that.
yeah, and was trying to make the argument that it's like, well, people, they analyze their genes and they look at the number of close relatives relative to the percentage that they'll survive a particular event. So it's like, I'll say, just someone
That's
was like,
Dawkins.
yeah,
I think that's Richard Dawkins's
yeah, I think it
argument.
is, and it
That's the
was like
selfish
so
gene
you'll
argument.
yeah, so you'll save two of your children or four of your nephews. And it's sort of like if I could, if it's only one child but four nephews, I gotta save the four nephews. That's more of my genes right there.
Mhm.
And it's just like I don't think that's what people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's
And
so
this reminds me of that. It just reminds me of this sense of like we got to reduce everybody down to things that cause them to behave the way in a certain way, and they can't. Yeah, that determines what they're going to do.
you have to make everybody
Determinism.
into a mechanized creature. And if you seek any kind of explanation outside the mechanism, you're inviting in the possibility of the spiritual. And these writers, their project is either if it's Dawkins or Sam Harris or Zola and Balzac, their project is the elimination of the spiritual, because then we can start to plan everything out.
Yeah,
Right. I think
yeah.
ultimately this is we're going to plan everything out, which explains why these authors have such giant novel projects, 56 and 20 novel length projects. We are going to get it all. We're going to get the whole blueprint of everything right here. You read these 3,000 or 5,000 or 6,000 pages and you'll have it. You'll
Yeah,
have
you'll see it all.
Mhm.
You'll understand a total life.
And you get, I mean, with Dante, I mean, the human comedy by Balzac is obviously contrasting the divine
Divine
comedy,
comedy, yeah.
right? And with Dante, there is, there's this sort of kind of really rich psychology in there, even though Dante is clearly free psychology.
Yeah.
Because in part you get it through Dante, you get it through these people, and that just seems like far more convincing that somebody would just be unable to give up their lust and be blown about by the winds or something along those lines. And there is such an ostentatious desire to destroy all of that tradition in this work that it becomes kind of deeply annoying after a while. It
Well,
drives it.
it's yeah, especially I mean he's got like one chapter or two chapters in a row, which again, he just goes into the like he's clearly just trying to show how scientific he is about all the conditions that are affecting them and how they had reached a state of fluid perfection prior to the murder, and then that threw them off balance and now they're too colic and the other one is now causing him to be libidinous. Like it's just this, I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like you just this is just A, it's boring, and B, why are you doing this? Like this is just it's not like a bad read per se. You know, like I read it, I sort of was interested in how it might end. Like it has that kind of quality, and like I liked the mother character. I kind of liked what how they ended with her. I actually
I like the
sort of
mother character a lot
enjoyed
too.
that.
Mhm.
Um, but
It ends with them dying and her watching,
yeah, that's a
paralyzed as
good
they
ending.
die below her. Yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
ending.
so the mother is, the whole point is the mother ends up basically having a stroke and she can't move. She becomes completely paralyzed. She can just move her eyes. That's all she can do. And she eventually figures out that they'd murdered her son, and she just has to watch them all day, and she hates them now, and she wants them to die, wants them to die. And she does at one point she like they have people over, and like in supreme effort she like starts moving her finger to like try to say what happened, and they're trying to interpret it, but her finger, eventually her whole hand gets paralyzed, she can't do it, and yeah, and then in the end they kill themselves, and she spends 12 hours in absolute delight as they just they corpses lie on top of each other. I mean, that's a nice touch. That's a well written bit of stuff there, and that's the thing, is like he's a good writer if his ideas just weren't so stupid.
I was reading this thinking this would make an excellent ghost story.
Yeah,
It can't be because of his project, but they keep seeing and imagining the body of this man in between them in bed. There's this kind of constant image of them imagining him there in between them. And I just kept thinking, if you give up everything and just have a ghost, and then you have like this gothic element of the paralyzed mother watching them all the time,
yeah, that's a
and
very gothic element. Yeah, I
it's
didn't
a
even think about that.
very, yeah, gothic thing. Like the whole thing feels like the kind of late 18th century movement against all of this scientizing and enlightenment stuff. And it seems like he wants his cake and he wants his cake and wants to eat it too. And the mother works so well for that reason. She's this like gothic figure, and
Yeah,
it's
you
really
know, she's the
cool.
mad woman in the attic kind of thing. Like just this, yeah. It's a great element in the story. Especially, yeah, she's like a statue and they like pray to her at one point. Like it's great.
Yeah.
She changes like how what she is to them at various points. And like there's just some great elements. It's like Poe, this
Mhm.
idea of like the figure that just can't speak and and just kind of silently screams. That's a great, yeah, it's very gothic, it's very romantic in sort of the capital R, not in the not in the romance sort of tradition. But like it's a great that's a great element. He's sort of like one of these writers where it's a sh he writes a good book in spite of himself to some extent.
Mhm.
It's just like he's clearly a very good writer, and if he just had better ideas, he probably would have written great books, but his ideas are dumb. So he writes. kind of annoying books. Uh, and I don't know. I don't know if people. Again, I couldn't find anyone who read them,
Mhm.
and I don't know if there are people who do
Who
still, or
reads
is he
Zola?
just a some,
He,
you read him for a 19th century fiction class and everyone kind of moves on, and is he just gonna get, yeah, we're phasing him out now? Is he gonna phase out of people not know anything about it in 50
hmm.
years?
I saw a Broadway play of this a few years ago with Keira Knightley.
Oh God, really?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
that was my first experience with Zola. Was seeing that.
She must this is an awful. She was probably very shrieky. Probably
Um,
not a good role for her.
yeah, it probably tells you how good it was. I barely remember it. I think I saw a mutual friend of ours, Eric, and when he was visiting New York, and it was
Oh,
the
fascinating.
production was more famous because one night a stalker came, a Keira Knightley stalker, and just started screaming at her from the audience, which is the only thing anybody had to say about the play. So that
Yeah.
tells you, it was a very static play. I'll say that. There was a lot of face acting going on, but I barely remember any of it. I think they
Who
do
played the
use,
dude?
I have no idea. I don't remember at all. I just remember her. I might not even, no, I don't think it was a celebrity at all.
This is
Um,
why I hate Broadway theater, because Broadway theater does this all the time. They basically, it's like, in order to make, this is why I like London theater. I don't like Broadway theater very much, because almost every play is one of three things. Either it's an adaptation of a movie, preferably a comedy that's being turned into a musical. Uh, it's that. It's a play that is going to star uh, somebody big. It's going to be a Keira Knightley, or it's going to be whatever, whoever it's going to be. It's going to be Daniel Craig. It's going to be somebody, and basically they're going to pay that one actor a ton of money, and therefore this show needs to make a ton of money, and so the tickets are ridiculously expensive for any of the. And the third category is just a giant musical, preferably again with some sort of intellectual property that's known, and just it's gonna be like the Spider-Man thing or whatever, just like massive just sets coming in, just that are like hand painted by Italian craftsmen, just like they're just gonna be, whatever it's going to be, and the tickets are going to be $400 a pop. And people are going to go see this thing, and basically everyone's going to applaud it because no one in their right mind wants to admit that they just wasted $400 to see a bad play. So that you just have like people are cheering these just totally mediocre productions. It's why I don't like Broadway theater, and it's probably something like this where they blew all their budget just to get Keira Knightley in the door, and then they're like, "Well, we can't afford anybody else good. Just get a recent graduate from Tisch, and
yeah.
hope and cross your fingers he can pull it off."
Yeah, it's
Like
Matt Ryan. Now, when I clicked on
the
Matt
the
Ryan
the the
played the
quarterback,
that's what happened. I clicked on his name in the article and it brought me to the CV of the
the
quarterback.
quarterback,
So
yeah.
that's how successful this actor is.
I mean,
Um,
you're also, if you're an actor and you chose for your stage name Matt Ryan, that was your own fault. Like you should have had a better name with a little more character to it, and also don't pick a NFL quarterback's name. Don't be and this musical is going to star Brett Favre. And everyone, no one will get confused by that. Everyone will.
it it will
When they
sell
Google his
though.
name, they'll find the actor first.
Mhm.
Then everyone will know the
Uh,
movies and plays
it's
he was in.
the great tap dancer Aaron Judge.
But that's the kind of that's I feel like it's just a dumb anyway. But I can't imagine this is a play. It's again, it's fine. It's sort of like, but it's just an irritating book, and I think people just. And the other thing is like the other reason I think people aren't reading this is because these are supposed to be like shock narratives to some extent. Clearly, he's doing this for like shock purposes. No one is shocked by this anymore. I can see something more shocking, on primetime SVU, and I turn that on, and
Easily, yeah.
easily I will see something that is far more horrific than this. and I can so this isn't gonna cause anybody to blanch anymore. It's just it sort of just has and it sort of has that quality where I'm like, I know you were just trying to get the oh my, like that's what you were trying to get out of these, the
Oh.
oh, what a thing, my petticoats are all in a ruffle, and then like that you were clearly trying to intentionally be quote unquote titillating, and it's just sort of like, yeah,
Apparently it
bro.
worked. So yeah, it
Yeah, I think it was,
started mild riots and fights in the theater.
yeah, and I get that. I understand that it was controversial for its time period, but that's a recipe for being stuck in your time period. No one's going to care anymore about it now unless it can stand on its own 2 feet. So if you're doing shock for cultural values of the time period, no one's gonna be continuing with that.
Yeah. Well, we could say no one's going to be continuing that. However, there is a very interesting continuation, and 2009 adaptation, Thirst. And this is Park Chan-wook, who is one of the more famous Korean
Yeah, apparently
directors.
he wrote like the again. I did have a chance to actually look him up. He directed like the highest grossing South Korean film ever.
Yeah, Old Boy,
Yeah.
which is I'm sure our audience, all two of them, KJ has definitely our audience member KJ has definitely seen Old Boy because he introduced it to me.
Oh, I don't know that one. Okay.
It was remade, actually Spike Lee remade it, apparently disastrously, but it's his only other movie that I've seen of his. It's part of a revenge trilogy, a thematic trilogy, starring the same actor who plays the priest, and it's
He's actually a decent actor.
he's a very good actor. I thought he was
Yeah, that
very
was
good in it.
good.
I actually like both of them.
I thought she was good too.
Yeah.
I quite actually liked their performances.
Yeah, I thought they were very dynamic, very interesting. Even subtle.
Yeah, I mean, just for it's pretty good. Like
Yeah.
their performances are solid.
Yeah. And his movies tend to be pretty graphic. They tend to deal with lurid subject matter. Old Boy is even more so than this.
Than drinking blood and vampires and
They're not drinking
oh, I'm sorry, I
blood.
ruined it. I ruined it.
Yeah,
The audience
yeah,
found it.
yeah. Spoiler alert. In Old Boy, there's a scene where you have him actually eat a live squid on screen, which is probably as shocking as you can get, just because you're actually seeing somebody eat a living thing as it's like squirming to stay alive. So it's or a living octopus, excuse me. And you see like the little legs going around his head and things like that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
disturbing.
it's
I can
disturbing,
get that. Yeah,
but and even in the context of the scene, it makes sense. So it's one of these things like, ooh, that's both disturbing and works. That's
yeah.
not just shocking. And so when I found out it was this guy who was doing it, I was very excited. And it's after Old Boy, so he's not a journeyman at this point in his career. He has established himself. And after about the first hour, I loved it. I think after the first 30 minutes, certainly I texted everyone. I'm like, this is great. And the plot follows a priest in South Korea who, at this time, South Korean Catholics it's a small group. It's like 7%. And I should say the director was also raised Catholic, which is unusual. And has a bit of a martyr complex, and he wants to get infected with a disease in a sort of pseudo leper colony to test out a treatment. And so he goes down there, gets infected. No one has survived. And of the 500 people or 200 people, whatever it is, who have been subject to this disease, he survives. And so he walks away and he becomes kind of somewhat known around these Catholic circles, these Catholic South Korean
Becomes
circles.
like the bandaged saint kind of thing. There's this, yeah.
Yeah, because he comes away and he's sort of allergic to the sun, it seems. Like he gets blisters when he's in the sun. And so he covers himself with bandages, and people are looking for him to bring cures to them, including this family with this kind of overbearing mother, her son who has cancer, I believe, or just survived cancer, and his wife. And this is where you have the Teresa Rakan story, where the priest is the artist who's coming to visit, and there's the overbearing mother. and the sickly, pathetic husband. But in this instance, the virus or the cure or whatever has turned the priest into a vampire with complete with all the vampire things, with superhuman strength and a need to drink blood and allergies to the sun. The sun will kill him, and so on and so forth, all the stuff. And they start a very bloody sexual relationship.
I mean, to some extent, up to this point, in my head, I thought it's actually kind of a clever way to handle this because, as we said, the biggest complaint I would kind of have with the novel is that it's that determinism. It's this idea that people do, that they doing bad things and that's causing them because of some sort of physical imbalance in them, and this sort of idea. And I thought, I mean, essentially, there in a modern day would be like, yeah, he's a vampire. It might as well be. He's a vampire. Just that's the physical disease. That's the thing. That's the only way you could. That's the only way that Zola's thesis makes sense. Is if it is sort of super. It actually becomes not naturalism, but it's supernatural. People don't actually behave in real life that they behave in a Zola novel. So why not just make it supernatural? That's why I was like, that's why it does actually feel like a natural extension of it to just say, yeah, that's the disease that he has. If everything is physical, the thing he has is vampirism. Why not? It's absurd, but that's sort of the point that in order for Zola novels to be taken seriously to some extent, that's got to be it. It's got to be vampirism. Like that's what he has, and you kind of go. I mean, at least in my head, I went, yeah, that kind of makes sense actually. Up to that point,
Up to that point, yes. And as it goes on, he turns her, and she has tried to resist killing people. That's what he tries to do. He fails at this. He gets a lot of his blood from a man in a coma that
yeah,
he has access to. She has no problem killing people. And oh, and they do the boat thing. They drown. I forgot about it. They
they do eventually kill the
drown.
husband. Yeah,
Yeah, they
before
do
she's a vampire. She's not a
before she's a
vampire yet.
vampire. Yep, they kill him. They drown him. They put a rock on his chest, and then she becomes a vampire, and she's pretty cool with killing people, and it becomes much more of a bloodbath at that point. Then you have the mother's paralyzed, and she same thing kind of in that instance.
That and the mother, yeah, the mother character kind of works the same as she does in the book.
Yeah, the mother is a bit more vicious here. She's
Yeah,
effectively enslaved the woman, um, which is not the case in the book, and it
no,
doesn't really make a lot of sense. Um, I mean, in the book, Teresa has nowhere to go because it's mid 19th century Paris. What is she going to do? It was a little less convincing here because it's just, it's the 21st century. It's a first world country. She couldn't leave. Like she really was just that destitute that she couldn't go anywhere. I mean,
yeah, beautiful woman, could probably have solved this problem on her
yeah,
own.
just leave. I mean, we see her leave all the time. She goes running at night.
Yeah,
Um, and that's kind of a problem. And then the movie turns kind of into a gore fest towards the end, and
it
it
almost felt like
falls apart.
it felt like either Pride and Prejudice and Zombies sort of thing. Which, to be fair, when I first picked up Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, I thought it was Pride and Prejudice, and I was reading the back cover of it, and was like, there are zombies in Pride and Prejudice. Like I hadn't read Pride and Prejudice. I was like, I didn't know anything. I'd never read Jane Austen. I was like, there are zombies in Jane Austen. I was like, I mean, there's the Frankenstein monster and Dracula and ghosts and Witherheads. Apparently, there are zombies in Jane Austen. But so that was the, I thought maybe this is like, that was kind of the thing. Or it honestly, what it felt like was the end of that movie Adaptation that we
Mhm.
watched,
Oh,
which
yes.
just was intentionally supposed to be just stupid and over the top. But I don't think this movie was intentionally doing it as a joke because it's like the last hour of the movie. It goes on and on and on. It's not just like the last 15 minutes. If they'd done it for the last 15 minutes, it actually might have been kind of funny. If they tried to make it sort of like, what the Twilight movies or something for an hour and 45 minutes, and then at the end it's just like, now the vampire snapped and murdered everyone. I'd be like, oh, that's actually kind of funny. They actually took this thing and it actually kind of ended it in a comical way. But I don't think it worked It's just kind of weird.
It is. It's really unpleasant. It is. I don't know what they're getting at anymore. It in the beginning of it, there's this sort of sense of this kind of this guy who to a certain extent seems to misunderstand his own religion as
Yeah.
this kind of mortification of the flesh type thing, as opposed to what, what I think it
And
really.
obviously there's the element of like drinking of blood. Like
Mhm.
that is an integral part of the Catholic faith. So there is this idea of he misunderstands it and also takes it literally.
Yes.
There's sort of like it's no, you're not you obviously doesn't get it. Um and so that element actually kind of works interestingly.
Mhm. It works
Uh
really well. Him
yeah,
miss Yeah, and it also, I think when it also works so well is because it takes his aestheticism, his kind of fear of the body, and makes it.
asceticism.
Yes, yeah. What did I
Or is
say?
it I think you said aestheticism.
Oh no, asceticism.
Yeah.
Yeah. His fear of the body and puts it so close to the erotic, the way
Yeah.
it's edited together. So there's a scene where after he meets the Teresa equivalent, he goes back and he's naked in his room and he's clearly aroused, and so he just starts whipping himself with he has this wood recorder. So he's whipping himself on his inner thigh. And it's intercut with her running when she's very desperate. She goes outside and just sprints barefoot, which it's a weird detail, but I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a great idea, yeah.
Yeah, and you just hear
Well, I
them
think it's supposed to be that
breathing.
she claims she's sleepwalking, and so
Mhm.
that's why she can't obviously put shoes on because she claims she's
Oh, okay.
sleepwalking.
I thought it
So
was just
that's
this
the
like animal thing of like I have to just
I think
the better, yeah, or the
that's sort of that's the interpretation, but within the context of the movie, it's because she can't put shoes on because she claims she's sleepwalking. So that's why she doesn't do it within the context of the film. But yes, like any good detail in a thing, it works on many levels, and this works on many levels. Yeah.
yeah. That's a good. I didn't catch the it's because she's sleepwalking thing, but anyway, so the way he edits them together, the sounds together, is you hear the two sounds of her running and him whipping himself over each other, and it sounds like they're having sex. It sounds like the
Yeah.
sounds of them having sex, and it's great. It's just you're like, ooh, this really is a really, really cinematic way of telling a story, of showing these people connected together, but also showing that their current lack of passion is what is going to bring them into passion, right? That's
Yeah.
how that's going to work. It's
Yeah.
really good storytelling. And also the scene where they meet outside in the street for the
Oh
first
yeah, that's a great
time,
one. Yeah, yeah, that's a good scene. Yeah.
where she's barefoot, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
and he picks her up and like he steps forward and picks her up and just drops her into his shoes.
Yeah.
And it's like this really lovely courtship moment. Like this, like instead of bringing flowers, he does that type of thing. And it's again, it's really, really weird. It's really off kilter, but it's
But it's
absolutely
good.
clear.
It's
Yeah.
very clear what's going on. It works within the context of the story. It works as you said, it works as a good storytelling element. Like it's good. This is good filmmaking. It's good writing. It's good acting. Like everything works on these kind of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, and both the performers are very good.
Yeah.
They do the thing where as he becomes a vampire, he takes his glasses off, and so now he's like the cool
Oh, I didn't
vampire.
even notice that.
Yeah, it's the one thing where I'm like, okay, it's fine. But his demeanor changes. He becomes like he just becomes seems like he's like a physically different guy as the vampirism grows in him or whatnot. And she just goes really like I like her psychopath. I know it's a little
Yeah,
over the top, but it's she is a very she's very much aroused by she's a sadist is
yeah.
what you discover, is that she's a natural sadist and that comes out in her, and it's a nice little performance. Yeah, to a certain extent you wonder if the vampire stuff is that which allows people to be natural in this world, like they're sort of crushing sort of natural instincts, and it's only the supernatural that allows them to express their natural desires
That's a fair.
within
Yeah.
this world. I think it's a fine thing to do. but again, I don't really have any problem with the concept. I think it's the execution in the last hour.
It's the execution in the last hour, which just turns into they just kill everyone.
Hmm.
They're just murdering people left and right. Yeah, and they turn their house into this weird greenhouse thing where they're like, well, we can't have the sun in, so they just close up all the windows and then paint everything white. It looks like it's from like Clockwork Orange or something. It's just bizarre. And then yeah, and then they just start murdering everyone.
Hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
was just such a weird, it just was weird.
Yeah, it's weird and kind of gross and not in a,
And they just keep stabbing everyone and then just like cutting people. I'm like, I mean, I'm not like squeamish per se, but I'm also like, just this isn't like I'm not gonna watch like I don't watch the Saw movies or this because I'm like that's just not appealing. Like, why the hell would I want to watch that? And this kind of just has the second half of this movie had that feeling. I'm like, why did they just keep showing people getting stabbed in the heart? Like it literally like cutting people open and removing, or I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm good. Like, this isn't
Hmm.
accomplishing anything, and it's kind of undercutting everything you did in the first half. And maybe that was the concept
Hmm.
that I'm gonna undercut everything I did in the first half. But then I'm like, well, then that's just a bad concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I don't know what they're going
I
for. I
don't
mean,
think that's
if
what it is. I
yeah, I don't I just think it's I think they're going for the what, whatever he submits to being bad. I don't know. I mean, it's a smart concept at the beginning that is a dumb schlock murder fest at the end. And
Yeah,
that's
they could have
that's
done
that.
better. Yeah, they
Hmm.
could have done better.
Yeah, they could have done a lot better.
Like like even I'm just thinking out loud. Like a great element would be like if they were murdering people and she was like a psychopath. Like this is one of the great moments in the book. It's a really great moment. There's a cat that's always coming around,
Oh God, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and at one point he's upset because the cat watches them having sex when she's still married to the other guy, and then the cat keeps coming around later, and he's just mad at the cat, and he thinks the cat's like, again he's gone and he's kind of crazy, and he thinks the cat's gonna like tell on them, so he goes and grabs the cat and like opens a window and like flings it at another wall and breaks its back, and then the cat spends the rest of the night like screaming trying to crawl across the roof on the other side. I mean, that's a devastating section of the novel. It's really disturbing. Like just it would have been better if they'd kept the cat in there or something, and she's like a psycho killing people, and he finally snaps and kills the cat, and like that's what kind of gets her to be like, "Holy, what are you doing? Why would you do that to the cat?" And then you've got like, oh, this is interesting. We've got some development. Like she starts seeing thing, and he's snapping, and there she's more concerned about the cat than human beings. Like anything would have made it sort of more depth than just okay, we're gonna kill another person, I guess now. And then oh, we thought that person was dead, but they're still alive, I guess. So they get to kill him again. We get to watch them kill them again, and
Oh,
then
that's
hang them up
right.
out of and then hang them
Yeah.
up in the bathtub
That
while they
that
drain
woman
them.
who you think is like the Susanna stand-in,
Yeah, and you
you think
think
is
she's
dead, and then she's not.
And I was like, so you just did that so you could just kill her again? Like you could because you were like, I can't introduce a new character at this point, but we need another body count. So let's murder another person.
Hmm.
But that's kind of what it felt like. It was just like you could have had some really interesting stuff to kind of go play with. And the whole thing with the husband just kind of vanishes. He doesn't do anything anymore after they're vampires. He just kind of shows up periodically and flails around. Like it was just a weird way to end it. And I think they really raised some really interesting questions and parallels and just odd things in the beginning, and then just don't
Yeah,
don't
then just
bother to
drop it.
handle them. And again, I
Yeah.
don't know if maybe if you were to talk to the director, would he say, "No, that was the point. I was handling those things. That was it all just degenerates into this." And I'd be like, "Yeah, it
Hmm.
didn't work. It's fine. You made a choice. It didn't work.
Hmm.
You probably should have known better." But
Yeah, when I read the interview with him, I read an interview he did with the Times or Variety or something, and his thought was that vampires are a Western creation, as is Catholicism.
I was actually wondering if that's what he was doing. I
Yeah,
actually was wondering if it was a thing about sort of impositions on a foreign culture, but I
yeah,
didn't
or
know if that would have.
infections. That's
Yeah,
it's like the
yeah.
vampire story as well as the religion are sort of they've come into this foreign body of Korea.
It's interesting. I was wondering if that was what he was doing, and I thought, nah, I don't think that's what it is. But
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
he was raised Catholic, and I think his brother is a pretty popular media artist, but who is also a practicing Catholic. And he's an atheist now, the director. But he
Interesting.
was
Yeah.
he was a Catholic I mean, he was raised Catholic in the 1960s, where I was looking it up. I'm like, how many people in South Korea were Catholic? And it was like 1.7%. And nowadays
Yeah.
it's like closer to 12. And so his point is kind of like this thing is really kind of growing fairly rapidly in my country. Because, it's like whatever is
That's a
that's
reasonably large
yeah,
number. Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty big jump in 60 years. Um, you know, so that's what he's going for.
Yeah. It reminds me of the uh Shusaku Endo. Do you know him? He's Japanese, but
You see silence?
he's the silence guy. Yeah. I've never seen the movie, but the book is I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I also think that people misread it. Um, we read it in one of my for my MFA program for like the summer thing when we were doing like workshops, and I think people just I'm like I don't think you're reading it correctly, but he has this sort of idea too that it's a lot of it in there that sort of Catholicism is a foreign. It's an imperial thing imposed, yeah, and sort of infecting, undermining the actual cultures, and this is Japanese, but it's still the same concept here. And that makes sense, but if that is the case, what is he doing with it? Like, I guess at the end, is he just saying, well, this is what's going to happen if like Catholicism keeps spreading here, it's just going to lead to murder? Maybe. I don't think so. I don't know how that's convincing.
Or this is, yeah, I mean, the vampire thing is just everything is going to look like an American movie. I think that's his idea of
Oh,
of the Americans
maybe.
coming in with the, or I mean, I guess vampire stuff isn't American, it's Western, but everything's going to look
It's
like a
Western, but
Western movie. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I
So that's why the second half is a bad movie because it's become a Western movie. Like then again, I'm not buying that.
yeah,
Like,
I can't work it out. My thought is he found really good storytelling devices that created more meaning than he intended, and therefore the thing is lopsided. He
no,
can't he can't produce that same kind of level of subtlety later on because it was never intended. There was just these like clever things that were going on that we are maybe making more of.
yeah, I mean probably, but I don't know. I don't quite buy it. But you're
Yeah,
right.
I
It could
I
be.
guess
I
so.
just I
It's
think that he had a thing he was trying to say. I just don't.
Mhm,
I'm not sure it worked. But
mhm.
I think and I think the descent into sort of cartoonish levels of violence was intentional. But I just don't. Yeah, and I mean the idea of well, this is what like if this is what the infection is going to lead to is is a bad movie is kind of a clever idea. It's very meta.
Mhm.
It's actually pretty clever. I don't think it works, but it would be clever if that's what he was
Yeah,
doing.
that's if he was able to actually control that material. I mean, it may be something about the Catholicism, the kind of closeness of the sensuality and the sexuality, how close, because Catholicism, it's a very sensual religion. I mean, if
It's
you,
it's all about sense. It's all about
yeah, it's all about
embodiment. Yeah,
sense.
so
Yeah,
it's you know.
if you're a theater major who is looking for Christianity, Catholicism is the religion for you. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
it's about ritual and sense and performance.
Mhm.
And embodiment is there is it's not necessarily Catholicism both rejects the body in the sense that it if you are a certain sense of asceticism, then you're meant to deny it, but at the same time it completely embraces it as opposed to like Manichaeism, because it's the idea that no, we are embodied. In fact, we have to eventually return to the bodies at the last judge in the last judgment. The body will be raised again because we're not complete, we're not individuated without the body. Has to be there. So there's sort of this actual sense of the body is absolutely necessary, you can't not have it. So it has both. It's all there.
My guess is that part of his atheism, or however it's informing this movie, is that there might be a sort of judgment as to is it possible to simply stay on the line of the sensual and not fall into the sexual, not to fall into indulgence. However, he also undercuts that because this guy has misunderstood his own religion. Like my reading of the beginning is the priest character
Yeah,
doesn't
I would
under
agree with you.
he is misunderstanding Catholicism. That's his whole martyr thing. That's all. He wants to be a leper. He wants the flesh to be eaten away from him.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
He's completely disgusted by it, and it might be this idea of sort of like the sexual version of binge eating disorder. Binge eating disorder occurs
Yeah.
when you restrict yourself too much, and eventually you're like, screw it, I'm going to eat everything. That might be what's going on here, where it goes, I'm going to restrict myself in every possible way, and then it's just at a certain point, what the vampirism is when that breaks, when you can't do that anymore, and you just you drink all the blood. You drink,
Yeah.
you take in
Yeah. No, I agree.
everything. Yeah.
I think
Um,
that's what it's that's a decent interpretation.
mhm. Yeah, but of course you have to misunderstand your own religion to do that. And is the character doing it or is the director doing it? I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe
But
both, but either way, that could possibly work.
interesting discussion around it. Not
Yeah.
to your point, I don't maybe we're reading. I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth. I don't know if it has that much depth to it,
Yeah.
but it's an interesting question. And it again, I think the first half of the movie is significantly better than the second half.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Emile Zola himself, I think he will be gone in 50 years. I don't think we're ever
Yeah.
gonna. I
Well,
don't think anyone's reading him in 50 years. I really
mhm,
don't.
mhm. Yeah, which is okay.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, of all the people, if he had won a Nobel Prize, he'd probably be better than many of the others, but not not that much better.
He would be better than Sully Prudhomme?
I
How
mean, he'd be better than like Sully
dare you?
Prudhomme,
How
or
dare
yeah,
you?
exactly, or Jose Echegaray.
Oh, the great
Um,
Jose Echegaray.
that's still the worst one. Jose
School
Echegaray, I think, is
children
still Jose
read
Echegaray
every
is
day.
still the worst. That was the worst thing that
Yeah,
we did left.
that was the worst one. I kept blaming Bjorn Bjornsson, but I think Echegaray was it was a
Bjornsson and
worse.
Bjornsson was fine. I
Yeah,
didn't mind him.
yeah,
He didn't
Echegaray was
anger
worse.
me. Echegaray was just stupid.
Yeah, Mistral was the worst one, but I think that has more to do with the translation.
Which one
The
was Mistral?
300-page poem in rhyming couplets.
Oh yeah, that was a bad translation. I still
Yeah.
think that thing has some interesting things going on in it. I
Mhm.
think it was a really, really,
It's
really
just
bad
hard to read.
translation.
It's
It
just
was
hard to
incredibly
read.
hard to read. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we have to say about
No, we have
this book?
hammered this one, dude. There was
We
we do. I
we
don't think there
we
was. We found
yes.
meaning where I don't think there was meaning,
Yeah, just like
but
the
it was
main
still fun.
character, we have hammered Teresa Ricon.
Yes.
So next week we are going to be doing Anton Chekhov.
Ooh, did we decide what we're actually doing?
Do we want to do Vanya on 42nd Street or do we want to do the Laurence Olivier Three Sisters?
Didn't we already do Vanya on 42nd
We
Street?
did it in the other podcast. You want to do Three Sisters?
I think that sounds more interesting. I mean, we've already
I
done
mean, it's basically
Vanya.
a film stage play that
That's
has
probably terrible then, isn't it?
Laurence Olivier in it that he directed. There's one that won the Palme d'Or in 2014 at Cannes is Winter Sleep, based on Chekhov's short story The Wife.
Which one is the wife?
I don't
I
know.
love Chekhov short stories.
We could do it on that. That would be in a, something different. I mean,
I
I've
think we should do
seen
that. Let's do that.
okay, Winter Sleep. I don't know how good it is. It won a lot of awards. If you enjoyed Teresa Raquan and would like to see more adaptations, check out the Renoir silent film adaptation from the 1920s. You can rate and review this show anywhere fine podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on social media at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Talking Pictures Trivia, where we explore movies through trivia,
Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201 467 8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Adapt It, wherever fine podcasts are found.
Join us next week when we go again with another No Nobler, this time Anton Chekhov and his short story adaptation, which was made into the 2014 film Winter Sleep. We'll see you then.
Wow, Talking Studios.
Next week, we'll be discussing the No Nobler Anton Chekhov, his short story, The Wife, and the Turkish film adaptation Winter Sleep. Pat, who would you hire to direct this short story of Chekhov's?
I mean, probably the guy who did the Turkish movie because
Yeah,
I don't really
he
know,
was
but
pretty good.
yeah, that's the thing is it was pretty good. So I was like, well, who would be the worst person to possibly direct this? And so and then somebody who's like realistic but would still be really bad at it. Because I was like, it'd be like Michael Bay, but that's just stupid. So I was like Steven Spielberg because I think he would really screw this up, and then it would really highlight how good Winter Sleep is. So that's why I
You
think.
couldn't do Tommy Wiseau?
Who's Tommy Wiseau?
The
Oh, see
Room.
the room. He's as soon as you said it, I was like, I still haven't seen the room. Have you watched it?
I haven't seen all of it. I've seen enough clips that
I've seen
I
enough clips. Yeah, I've
don't
seen the.
really. I imagine a midnight viewing would be very fun, where you go with a bunch of people who
Yeah,
know the movie and know how to kind of interact with the movie. But no, I haven't sat down and watched the movie all the way
yeah. I
through.
don't know if it's one of those movies because like the my favorite bad movie is Troll 2 because I just think it's actually really funny as to how bad it is. So I don't know if it's that bad. I don't know if it's funny in that sense. But anyway, no, I would get. That's the thing is that's why I would get like. Although he probably would be good because I guess he's really stilted and does terrible with dialogue. So maybe this would be a good. Maybe he would be good at this. But I'm gonna go with Steven Spielberg because he'll make it something like sort of trite and sort of historic and it'll just feel really weird and it just won't work.
It
So
won't work because Spielberg doesn't deal with ambiguity well.
yeah, that's I mean Spielberg finds the point and he wants the ending and the point and he wants you to know what the message is. And so that's why I think this would just be a terrible movie for him to do.
Yeah, maybe Munich is his most
I've never
ambiguous
seen Munich.
ending.
Never seen it.
I think it's one of his better movies where it's just you're not exactly sure what you're supposed to feel about the circumstance by the end of the picture, but that's rare for
Yeah, if
Spielberg.
it's
Usually
rare.
like
All of the movies I've seen by him, they're obviously they're visually stunning. They're often really good storytelling, but they you know what you're supposed to think by the end of it. And like this movie you don't. I don't think it's clear at all. And so anyway, what about you? Whom would you pick?
I went with the British filmmaker Mike Leigh, and I think Mike Leigh does these sort of down to earth, realistic films with a lot of people talking in small spaces. The problem with Lee is in this material is he's a bit more warm-hearted than your average Chekhovian adaptation
Chekhov doesn't tend to
would
be very happy.
would lend itself to. No, there's a bit there's a bit more warm-heartedness in Lee's stuff, especially a lot more of his later stuff that I've seen. So it wouldn't be an ideal person for this, but some of the ideal like Russian directors, I just haven't seen a lot of their work, so I can't recommend it. I wouldn't say Tarkovsky because first of all, he's like on one chance, on one hand, the Russian director, but on the other hand, he doesn't do a lot of these like small realistic things. He does these kind of more mythical, giant mythical projects, which also would be completely wrong for Chekhov. I mean,
Yeah.
this film is very long, but it isn't mythical. It's still very intimate throughout the whole thing. And so I think I'm going to go with Mike Leigh. Not the best choice, but it would be intimate and interesting.